"Will you help me find my son?" an old woman asked the most feared Hell's Angel biker. The mid-afternoon sun beat down on the cracked asphalt of Rusty's Diner, a lonely stop on the edge of a dusty Nevada town. It was the kind of place where truckers stopped for coffee and locals whispered about the dangers of the open road. But today, the usual hum of conversation died instantly as a low, guttural roar echoed through the valley. It wasn't just one bike, it was a phalanx of chrome and leather. The Hells Angels had rolled into town. Leading the pack was a man known simply as Viper. He was a mountain of a man, his face a road map of scars, his beard thick and graying, and his vest heavy with patches that spoke of decades spent on the wrong side of the law. To the townsfolk, Viper was a myth made flesh, the most feared biker in the state. Mothers pulled their children closer, men lowered their gazes. Fear hung in the air, thicker than the exhaust fumes. Viper killed the engine of his massive Harley, the silence that followed feeling heavier than the noise. He swung his leg over the seat, his boots hitting the ground with a thud that seemed to shake the foundation of the diner. His crew fanned out behind him, a wall of intimidating presence. They were there for a routine meetup, or so everyone assumed. No one expected what happened next. As Viper marched toward the diner door, his path was blocked by a small, trembling figure. It was Mrs. Gable, an elderly woman whose frailty was evident in every line of her weathered face. She wore a faded floral dress and clutched a worn photograph against her chest. Her eyes were red-rimmed and swollen, overflowing with tears that traced deep gullocks into her cheeks. The crowd held its breath. Surely Viper would brush past her. Maybe he'd shout at her to move. That's what monsters did, wasn't it? That's what the stories said. "Excuse me," she whispered, her voice cracking like dry twigs. Viper stopped. He looked down, his dark eyes hidden behind tinted aviators. He didn't speak. He just waited. Mrs. Gable took a shaky step forward, reaching out a hand that trembled violently. She didn't pull away when Viper flinched slightly. Instead, she lifted the photograph. It showed a young man, no older than 20, smiling brightly in a graduation gown. "Will you help me find my son?" she asked, the words tumbling out in a rush of desperation. He left 3 days ago. He said he was going to fix his life, to get clean, but he never came home. The police say he's just another runaway statistic. They told me to go home and wait, but I can't wait. I feel it in my bones that he's in trouble. Please, everyone says you know everything that happens on these roads. You see what others miss. Will you help me find my son?" A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers. Asking the leader of a notorious motorcycle gang for help finding a missing person? It was insanity. People expected Viper to laugh, to mock her naivety, or to ride right over her shadow. Viper slowly removed his sunglasses. Underneath, his eyes weren't cold or dead. They were intense, burning with a sudden, fierce recognition. He looked at the photo, then back at the old woman's tear-streaked face. The hardness in his posture seemed to melt just a fraction. "What's his name?" Viper's voice was gravelly, deep, but surprisingly gentle. "Leo," she sobbed. "Leo Gable." Viper froze. The name hit him like a physical blow. He reached into his leather vest, pulling out a crumpled pack of cigarettes, but he didn't light one. His hands, usually steady enough to handle a speeding bike at 80 miles per hour, shook slightly. "Leo," Viper repeated softly. "The kid with the guitar, the one who used to wash bikes at the garage down in Reno." Mrs. Gable's eyes widened. You know him?" "I know him," Viper said, his voice dropping an octave, thick with emotion. 3 years ago, Leo tried to steal a wallet from one of my prospects. We caught him. Instead of beating him within an inch of his life like we should have, I saw something in his eyes. Fear and hunger. Not for food, but for a way out. I bought him a meal, then another. I told him the life he was chasing would eat him alive. I tried to steer him straight. Viper looked around at his crew, then back to the mother. I lost track of him when he moved north. I thought he made it. I thought he got clean."
"He relapsed," Mrs. Gable cried, clutching his armored arm. "Please, sir, I don't care who you are. I don't care what people say. You're the only one who might actually look for him. The police have given up, but you have eyes everywhere." Viper stared at the old woman for a long moment. In her desperate plea, he didn't see judgment or fear. He saw the same love his own mother had shown him before she passed, a love that had tried to save him from the very life he now led. A pang of regret, sharp and bitter, twisted in his gut. He had spent a lifetime building a reputation of terror, yet here was a woman asking him to be a savior. He turned to his second-in-command, a burly man named Tank. "Cancel the meetup," Viper ordered, his voice commanding and absolute. "Boss?" Tank asked, confused. "We rode 6 hours for this." "We got a more important ride to make," Viper snapped. He turned back to Mrs. Gable. "Ma'am, dry your eyes. We aren't leaving until we bring Leo home." The shock on the faces of the diner patrons was palpable. The most feared man in the state was mobilizing his entire chapter, not for a turf war or an illegal run, but for a missing addict. For the next 12 hours, the highway belonged to the Angels, but not in the way anyone expected. They split up, covering every abandoned warehouse, every shady motel, and every known drug den within a 100-mile radius. Viper led the charge personally, driving with a ferocity born of guilt and hope. He questioned dealers with a threat so visceral they spilled information immediately. He wasn't using violence, he was using the weight of his reputation to demand answers. Finally, just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long orange shadows across the desert, a radio crackled. It was Tank. "Found him, boss. Old mill outside of Silver Creek. He's bad, Viper. Really bad." Viper didn't hesitate. He gunned the engine, the roar tearing through the twilight. When they arrived at the dilapidated mill, Leo was huddled in a corner, shivering, barely conscious. 2 low-level dealers were guarding him, looking ready to flee as 30 massive bikers surrounded the building. Viper dismounted and walked inside. The dealers scrambled away, terrified of the retribution. Viper knelt beside the young man. Leo looked up, his eyes hollow, expecting a beating. Instead, the giant biker gently wrapped his leather jacket around the shanking shoulders of the boy. "Your mama is waiting, Leo," Viper said softly, helping the young man to his feet. "She hasn't given up on you, and neither have I." The ride back was slow. Viper rode with Leo secured safely behind him, while the rest of the chapter formed a protective escort. When they pulled up to Mrs. Gable's small house, the porch light was on. She ran out before the bikes even fully stopped. When she saw Leo, alive and wrapped in the biker's jacket, she collapsed to her knees, weeping tears of pure relief. Viper helped Leo down and stepped back, allowing the mother and son to embrace. The sight of the terrifying bikers standing guard, arms crossed, watching over their reunion with a soft, sad smile, broke the hearts of everyone watching from their windows. Before mounting his bike to leave, Viper leaned down to Mrs. Gable. "Ma'am, he's got a long road ahead, but he's got a second chance. Don't let him waste it." "Thank you," she whispered, reaching out to touch his hand. "You saved us. You're an angel." Viper chuckled, a rough, rare sound. "No, ma'am, just a guy who knows what it's like to need someone to believe in him." As the engines roared to life once more, fading into the night, the town didn't see monsters riding away. They saw guardians. The story of the feared Hell's Angel who moved heaven and earth for a crying mother spread quickly, changing the narrative forever. It proved that beneath the leather and the steel, beneath the scars and the reputation, the biggest hearts often beat in the places we are too afraid to look. Kindness, it turns out, wears many disguises, and sometimes redemption rides on 2 wheels. Thanks for watching.